Hi folks, today I wanted to talk to you about how to do tabletop RPGs on a budget. So you can spend a lot of money on tabletop RPGs between the rule books, miniatures, terrain, dice, other accessories, but you don't have to. There are some definite ways that you can save and find ways to fit tabletop RPG into even the tightest budget. I do want to preface this with do not pirate materials. Don't do it. It's a bad idea. It hurts the hobby. There are ways to save money, but doing something like that only hurts the people who put all of this time and effort into creating these games for you to play, and it's just kind of a bad thing to do. So first of all, free rules. A lot of the larger companies do have free quick start guides available online that you can download. And it's not going to give you all of the different options for players or all the monsters or even some of the GM stuff, but it's going to be enough to at least get you started, and you can kind of extrapolate from there, make up some of your own stuff using that as a guide. Another place to look is to look at some of these smaller game companies. I know we have the Savage Worlds Deluxe book, and that book was only $10. And that's everything from character creation to how to run the game, and it includes basic stats for monsters. There are a lot of other smaller companies that have their stuff available. PDFs also are a great way to save money. You're not going to have the physical book, but you can find them on like DriveThruRPG and the DM's Guild, places like that. And just because it is digital, you're not paying for that physical printing. It's going to be a little less expensive. Another great resource are your local libraries. Some libraries do have RPG books in them, and if they don't, you might be able to see if another branch has one and you can borrow it. Now, this will mean checking them out and rechecking them out, but it's also something that's great to look at if you're like, hey, I want something from the Sword Coast Adventures core book, but I can't justify purchasing the whole thing. You could check it out from your local library, get the stats for that, and without having to purchase the entire book. So if you are interested in having the physical books, one thing you can do is split the cost with your group. So instead of everybody buying their own player's handbook, buy one player's handbook, one DMG, one monster manual. This is if we're talking about D&D 5th edition. But any other system, buy one of the core book or books that you need to play that game, and then share them within the group. Now, this does get a little tricky if your group ever does split down the road for whatever reason, just figuring out who is it that gets to keep those physical books, because, you know, there's one copy of the book. You can't really split those up. All right, so let's move on to some of the accessories that are needed or useful for gaming. So first of all, dice. A basic set of dice doesn't cost that much, but they can get very expensive very quickly. So one thing that you can do if you're just looking for a free, easy version is dice roller apps. I have one that I downloaded I've used it a couple times at conventions when I haven't had specific dice on me. I also use the dice roller apps when I need like a stupid amount of damage, where it's like, roll 10d6, and I might not necessarily have that many, and also it does the math for you. Now, there are definitely some systems where the dice roller apps might not work. Fate, where you need to have those plus and minuses and the blank sides, you'll need the Fate dice for that, but it is a less expensive version. Now, a lot of these dice roller apps have a free version, but they also have stuff that you can unlock by paying for it, which is up to you if you want it. Minis. That's another place that you can spend quite a lot of money as well as time on. If you want to go the super frugal way, don't use minis. Use theater of the mind. Have descriptions and do it all kind of in your own heads and through the descriptions. But if you do want to use miniatures, there are a few ways you can cut costs. First of all is use what you have. So I've seen a lot of people use Lego minifigs, and that's great, especially if you've got like kids that have a huge Lego collection. I've also seen people that have done terrain out of Legos. We'll get more into terrain in a little bit. But also, you know, if you've got like some little plastic toys or those little marbly things that go in aquariums, stuff like that, you probably have something lying around your house that can stand in for miniatures. Heck, even dried beans work. Now, if you want something that has a little bit more character to it, you can go the paper mini route. There are a number of really great artists out there who've created their own paper miniature sets. I do also know some of the bigger companies have some like cardboard minis that, for the amount that you get, it's a pretty good bargain. They also will store a lot easier because you can store them flat. If you want a little bit more fun and delicious route, you can use gummies. I've known some people that have used gummy bears and various gummy candy things as minis, and the fun thing with that is when your player kills that particular monster, they get to eat it. Yum, 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 yum. So if you want to incorporate music, there are some really great free resources out there. I use Tabletop Audio, which is free to use. They've got some really great different soundscapes on there, as well as some like sound effects you can throw in. Also, I've used soundtracks, both movie and gaming soundtracks. Now, this is something that if you're streaming or in any way recording your game to be played elsewhere, you probably don't want to go that route. You want to find some royalty-free music. But if you're just playing a home game that nobody else except for the people there are going to hear it, gaming and movie soundtracks are great. Just find something that's kind of in the right setting and has the right feel for what you're doing. And some of these you can even stream through various music streaming apps. There are a ton of free and inexpensive resources you can find online. I use a lot of Dyson's Logos maps. We've talked about him before. A lot of his maps are free and available to use, even in commercial use. Plus, he provides some really fun adventure hooks in there with the maps. And if you're looking for adventure modules, check out the free and the pay what you can areas in the DM's Guild and Drive-Thru RPG, places like that, because you know the free ones, they're free, and then the pay what you can, you know, if all you can really afford is $1 or $2, that's what it's there for. If you can afford more, great. And then there are just a lot of searching around on blogs, and I like Pinterest. I've found some really cool items that have just popped up on Pinterest when I've looked around for Dungeons and Dragons. And the great resources there. And kind of the final tip is go minimal. So this ties a little bit back into like with minis, going theater of the mind, but taking it back to kind of the basic bits of the game. You know, at the core of most tabletop RPGs are this idea of this collaborative storytelling with a group of people. So you don't need all of the stuff. You don't need all of the minis and all of the terrain and a soundscape and ambient lighting. That's all great stuff to add atmosphere, and if that's what you love doing, great, go for it. But if what you just want to do is to sit down and play a game with your friends, that's all you really have to do. Ultimately, you just need to agree on a rule set, find a time and the people to all sit down and game together. So do you have any suggestions or resources that are really helpful if you were trying to do tabletop role-playing games on a budget? Let's talk more about it down in the comments below. I want to give a special thanks to all of our patrons over at patreon.com/roll4initiative, especially Joan, Arvi, Sean, and Lainey. If you're interested in becoming one of our patrons, you can go over, check out some of our perks, and figure out what level you'd like to help support us and join our campaign. And as always, thanks everyone who's watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We make videos every Tuesday and Thursday, and we'll see you next time on Roll for Initiative. Bye!